This is the 32nd Sunday of Ordinary Time. We're down to the last couple of weeks of Ordinary Time, and typical in the liturgical year, the focus starts to being more apocalyptical, so focusing on the end of the world. For many people in our country, this election had apocalyptic overtones. According to the news services, about 160 million people voted last week or sometime for the election. That's a record turnout for us. And the difference between one candidate and the other was 4 million votes. That's 1/4% of the votes cast. That's pretty close. It's 4 million, not 4,000, but it's still pretty close. I ask you to consider how you felt in the run-up to and during the count for the election. What were your feelings? And now I'd like you to consider the feelings of someone who voted the other way. Clearly, they would have felt the same kinds of feelings. Some anxieties, tensions, concerns for the future. We are almost equally divided. And therefore, we need to work very hard on reconciliation. Our readings today speak of wisdom, of vigilance, and of hope. The book of wisdom tells us that wisdom is readily perceived by those who love her and found by those who seek her. I'm not quite sure that that's always the case, certainly for myself. The definition of wisdom in a dictionary is having qualities of experience, knowledge, and good judgment. Certainly, all of us know some folks in our lives whom we consider to be wise. They tend to see all sides of an issue. They tend to make decisions calmly, keeping their emotions in check. There are times in my life when I know that I've gotten worked up and wanting to act and do this, that, or the other thing, and then later saw the wisdom of someone else's opinion, someone else's advice to me, usually with the great grace of 20/20 hindsight. Wisdom is bigger and better than being smart, clever, or shrewd. Wisdom, true wisdom, is of God. It sees beyond the obvious. It's far-reaching. It's even kind. Wisdom chooses love over hatred, forgiveness over vengeance. We need wisdom these days to sort out the right things to do, the right next steps in our country. After this election, our country needs to come together to find some common ground. The election is basically over, although they're still counting. But COVID is not over. The economy still needs fixing. People still need opportunities. To address these issues which remain in our divided country, we need wisdom. Our gospel today tells us a kind of an unusual story, and the scholars are very split on the various images involved. They wonder why these 10 virgins of the story would be waiting for the bridegroom. Normally they'd be attending to the bride and things of that sort. We note, just as a reflection, a coincidence if you will, that the wise and the foolish were equally divided among these attendants. Maybe that tells us something. The message, however, of the story is vigilance. It's going to be repeated. That message will be repeated in a different story next week. We need to be ready for the Lord when God comes. We need to be attentive. So how do we have enough oil for our lamps? What do we need? What do we need to be vigilant, to be ready? We need prayer. We need discernment. We need to keep looking for God's presence. Vigilance. Looking to see what action is called for now. Being ready to greet that bridegroom of the story. To let God enter into our lives, to recognize that Messiah in our midst, to read the signs of the times. Those require us to be vigilant. The way forward for us is still perilous. We have a divided country, we have a divided government. We need wisdom to come together with respect and compassion. We need vigilance to spot the opportunities when the grace of healing is possible. St. Paul, in a letter to the Thessalonians today, reminds us of hope. The Thessalonians were sure of the immediate end of the world, just as many were sure of that at the lead up to the election. They were worried about their dead, and Paul reminds them that Jesus is our hope, and Jesus is the one who conquers all. As we look for wisdom, we need to look to see where God is leading us these days. We need to remain vigilant to the signs of God's coming among us. We need to keep hope. These are all gifts to us through our faith. These are gifts we should cherish and nurture and strengthen. Let us reverence and take care of them. And let us pray for our country.